He was born into wealth, but in one night, Kojo lost everything. His father's empire stolen, his mother gone, and his uncle secretly plotting his death. Just when he thought hope had returned, betrayal struck again. This is the story of love, greed, and survival. And trust me, you won't believe how it ends. Kojo was the only son of his father. A brilliant young Ghanaian man with a promising future, he was deeply loved, especially by his mother. His father, a respected businessman, had already mapped out a path for him to take over the empire one day. But Kojo was not just another spoiled rich child. He had ambition, and his dream was to travel abroad for his master's degree so that he could stand on his own feet, independent of his father's name. But before his journey, life struck him with a wound that would forever shape his view of people. Kojo's mother, Madame Afia, was an asthmatic patient. For years, her health was delicate, but she was a strong woman, always by Kojo's side, always encouraging him. On the night he graduated from the university, she sat him down and said, "Kojo, my son, don't let the wealth around you blind your heart. In this world, true love is rare. Look for a woman who will love you, not your money." Kojo nodded, but at that time, he believed he had already found the woman of his dreams. Her name was Sandra, a beautiful, sophisticated lady he had been dating for months. She had expensive taste, but Kojo thought it was because she was classy. He never imagined that behind the makeup, she was only after his wealth. The day Sandra came home to meet Kojo's parents for the first time was the day his life changed forever. She walked into the house with her perfume scent filling every corner, heels clicking against the tiles, her face painted with pride. Madame Afia was upstairs in her room, feeling slightly unwell. But when Sandra arrived, she insisted on coming down to greet her son's future wife. The moment Sandra saw her, she frowned. Madame Afia was struggling to breathe, her inhaler slipping from her trembling hand. Instead of rushing to help, Sandra stepped back, her face twisted in irritation. "Kojo never told me he has a maid as dirty as this," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for the maid to hear. Madame Afia gasped for air, her chest tightening. She reached out for support, but Sandra turned her head away. Pride and disgust filled her eyes. She didn't want to touch the woman she thought looked weak and dirty. Within minutes, Madame Afia collapsed onto the floor. Sandra watched for a moment, then grabbed her purse and quietly walked out. She didn't scream for help. She didn't call Kojo. She simply walked away, got into her car, and later texted Kojo, "Meet me at the restaurant. We need to talk." By the time the maid entered the living room and saw Madame Afia on the floor, it was too late. They rushed her to the hospital, but she never made it. Kojo lost his mother that evening. After Kojo's mother died, Sandra called him to a restaurant. Kojo went, hoping she would comfort him, but instead she smiled, ordered expensive dishes, and spoke coldly. "Kojo, you need to change some things in that house. And that sick-looking woman I saw, I thought she was one of your maids. I couldn't even stand being around her." Kojo froze. That maid was his mother, the same woman Sandra had left struggling for her life. The next morning, restless and broken, Kojo went through the CCTV footage at home. His hands shook as he watched the recording. His mother gasping for air, reaching out, Sandra standing over her, then turning her back and walking away. Tears filled his eyes. His heart pounded. He replayed it again and again, hoping he had seen wrongly. But it was the truth. The woman he thought he loved, the woman he had showered with gifts, cars, and money, had left his mother to die because of pride. When Sandra was later told that the woman she abandoned was actually Kojo's mother, her face turned pale. She was shocked. She hadn't known, but the damage was done. Kojo's heart broke in ways words could not explain. That incident planted a scar deep inside him. From that day, he swore never to trust appearances, never to believe love that was built on wealth. His journey abroad for his master's degree became more than just an academic pursuit. It became an escape from pain, a chance to rebuild himself, and a silent vow to one day. Kojo left Ghana with wealth, but he carried loneliness. He left with dreams, but also with a bleeding heart. And above all, he carried his mother's last words. "My son, don't let wealth blind your heart. True love is rare. While Kojo was away in Canada pursuing his master's degree, back home in Ghana, his father was running the family business alone. His father trusted his younger brother, Uncle Kwesi, more than anyone. To outsiders, Uncle Kwesi looked loyal, supportive, and humble. But behind his smile was jealousy that had been growing for years. Kojo's father had built an empire, and Kwesi always felt like he was standing in his brother's shadow. He wanted the wealth, the recognition, and the influence. And with Kojo far away abroad, the perfect opportunity presented itself. One evening, Kwesi invited his elder brother, Kojo's father, to dinner. It seemed like a normal family gathering. The atmosphere was warm, the table was full, and his wife, Auntie Abina, moved around with a calm smile serving food. Nobody suspected a thing. But that night, there was poison on the table. Not in all the food, but only in the dish carefully prepared for Kojo's father. Auntie Abena, the mastermind of it all, had secretly laced his portion with a substance that would slowly take his life in his sleep. They all ate together, laughing, sharing stories, while death quietly settled into his body. After the meal, Kojo's father thanked his brother for the hospitality and returned home. He felt tired but thought nothing of it. He went to bed like any other night. By morning, he never woke up. News of his sudden death spread quickly. Friends, relatives, and neighbors were shocked. The police arrived and immediately suspected foul play. They wanted to perform an autopsy to know the real cause of death, but Kwesi stepped in quickly. With fake tears in his eyes, he said, "Officer, please, this is my only brother. Let us not drag his name through the mud. Let us not disgrace the family. He has suffered enough in life. Let him rest in peace behind the scenes." Kwesi slipped an envelope filled with cash into the hands of the officer in charge of the case. The investigation was dropped. No questions were asked again. The death was ruled natural causes. At that time, Kojo was close to completing his studies in Canada. When the news reached him, his heart broke into pieces. He had lost his mother, and now his father too. But Uncle Kwesi assured him over the phone, "Kojo, my son, don't worry. Everything is under control. I am here. Focus on your studies. Your father would want you to finish strong." Kojo believed him. He had no reason not to. He didn't know that the very man who pretended to comfort him was the one who had destroyed his family. Kojo buried his grief in his books, not knowing that the empire his father built was slowly being swallowed by the man he called uncle. The following year, Kojo finally returned to Ghana. He came back full of hope, thinking he would take over his father's business and honor his legacy. But the Ghana he returned to was not the same Ghana he had left. Uncle Kwesi had already tightened his grip on everything. His father's company, the mansion, the cars, the businesses, even the family bank accounts. Everything was now in Kwesi's name. Kojo's account had been frozen. The only son of the house was left with nothing. When Kojo confronted his uncle, he expected at least a conversation, an explanation. Instead, he was humiliated. Security guards dragged him out of the office like a common criminal. Day after day, he tried again, but the answer was always the same. "Leave before we arrest you." His father's empire was gone. His wealth was gone. Even the friends who used to surround him disappeared. Kojo found himself renting a small one-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. His life of luxury was replaced with hunger and loneliness. Desperate to survive, he went in search of a job, but no company wanted to hire him for his qualifications. Every door seemed to close against him. The only position he eventually found was that of a cleaner. Out of hunger and frustration, Kojo accepted. He began working silently, and that was where he noticed her. Nana. She was the assistant managing director. Beautiful, calm, and well-mannered. Unlike others in her class, Nana treated everyone with respect. She greeted the drivers, the secretaries, and even the cleaners. Kojo was shocked. He had seen enough arrogance from people in high places, but Nana was different. One morning, as she walked into the office in her heels, Kojo was already mopping the floor. The tiles were wet, and before he could warn her, she slipped and fell hard. The sound of her cry echoed through the hallway. People rushed to help. The MD himself stormed out, furious. Everyone pointed at Kojo. "Careless cleaner! You could have killed her." The MD wanted him fired immediately. But to Kojo's surprise, Nana defended him. Sitting there in pain from her dislocated ankle, she pleaded, "It was an accident. Don't punish him. He was only doing his job." Kojo stood frozen. He could not believe that a woman of her class would protect him. After that day, Nana continued to greet him, smile at him, even tip him sometimes. She encouraged him whenever she passed by. Slowly, Kojo's wounded heart began to heal. Then came the evening that changed everything. After work, Nana rushed out to her car, her handbag swinging by her side. Unknowingly, her purse fell out. She drove off without noticing. Later, when Kojo was cleaning, he saw the purse. Out of curiosity, he opened it. Inside was cash, hard currency, dollars. For a moment, Kojo stared. He was broke, hungry, and struggling. That money could solve so many of his problems. But he shook his head. "No, I will give it back to her tomorrow." And he did. The next morning, he walked up to her office and handed her the purse. Nana was shocked. She opened it, saw everything intact, and smiled warmly. "Thank you." Many people would not have returned this from that day. Their friendship began to grow. She trusted him. She even invited him for dinner one evening. Kojo, or cleaner, felt a spark he hadn't felt in years. But while Kojo's life was beginning to find light again, his uncle was plotting in the shadows. Kojo's return had unsettled him, and now he began to plan something darker, not just to keep the wealth, but to silence Kojo forever. Kojo's uncle had stolen his father's empire, but now fear was driving him restless. As long as Kojo was alive, the truth could come out. So he arranged for street boys to kidnap and kill him. One night, as Kojo walked home from work, a gang of young men cornered him in a dark alley. Knives flashed, a gun cocked. The leader raised his weapon, ready to pull the trigger. Then suddenly a voice cut through the night. "Stop!" The gang froze. Their leader stepped forward, eyes widening as he recognized Kojo. It was Kabi, a face Kojo remembered well. Years ago, Kabi had been caught stealing in a crowded market. The angry mob beat him, ready to burn him alive. Just as they were about to end him, Kojo, still a rich young man at the time, drove by. His security guards jumped in, dispersed the crowd, and Kojo personally handed Kabi to the police. Later, Kojo dropped all charges and gave him a second chance. Now Kabi stood before him again, this time as his executioner. His voice shook as he told the others, "This man saved my life. I will not let anyone harm him." They all sat down in an uncompleted building. He narrates everything that the uncle had done and how he paid them to kill him. He also told him not to worry, that he will help him get more evidence to bring down his uncle. That night, Kabi came to see Kojo, trembling. His voice was shaky, but his eyes carried a new kind of strength. "Kojo, there's something you need to see." He reached into his pocket and brought out a small flash drive. Then he told the story. After the failed attack, Kabi had gone back to meet Kojo's uncle, to collect the remaining payment for the job. But the uncle, furious that Kojo was still alive, exploded in anger. "You think I'll pay you for failing me?" he shouted. "I told you to finish him. That boy must not live to take what belongs to me." What the uncle didn't know was that every word that came out of his mouth was being recorded. Kabi had set up a tiny spy camera in his shirt button, capturing both the video and the audio. Every threat, every confession, all of it was there. That single recording was the key Kojo needed. By morning, Kojo contacted Yaw, his old friend and one of the best lawyers in the country. Together, they took the evidence straight to the authorities. The case went to court, and the truth exploded like fire. The judge played the video for the whole courtroom to see. There was Kojo's uncle sitting in his own living room, confessing on tape, plotting his nephew's death, discussing how he forged signatures and how he planned to seize the company's assets. Gasps filled the air. The courtroom was silent when the verdict came. Kojo Mensah and his wife, guilty of attempted murder and fraud, sentenced to life imprisonment. Kojo's eyes filled with tears. It wasn't victory. It was freedom. But what came next shook even him. During the trial, Yaw discovered that the company Kojo had been working in was actually registered in his name. His late father had secretly bought it years ago for him, alongside other businesses under a family trust. Kojo wasn't just an employee, he was the rightful owner. A week later, the boardroom was packed. Executives whispered. The janitor had become the new CEO. Then the doors opened. Kojo walked in, this time not with a mop, but in a well-tailored suit. Calm, determined, regal. He took his seat at the head of the table. From today, he said, his voice steady, no one will be judged by their background or title, only by their heart. Then he looked at Nana, the woman who once stood up for him when he was at his lowest. He smiled and added, and effective immediately, Nana is promoted to Senior Executive Director. The room erupted in surprise and applause. Nana's eyes shone with tears, not for the position, but for the man Kojo had become. The janitor was now the CEO. The rejected one had returned as the cornerstone. And by his side stood the woman who had seen him for who he truly was, long before the world remembered his name. And that was how Kojo's story came full circle. The cleaner became the CEO. The forgotten son became the name everyone stood to honor. Life truly has a way of humbling the proud and lifting the broken. But beyond the power, the title, and the victory, Kojo never forgot one thing. Kindness has a memory, and in the end, it was that same kindness that saved his life. Tell me, what lesson did you take from Kojo's journey? Do you believe people can truly rise again after being written off by everyone? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what this story means to you.